Hey everyone, welcome back to the bench and to another basic skills in wire jewellery. And this week I thought we'd get back to the art of weaving. We haven't done much of it recently and we need to practice it a bit more before I start bringing out some pendant projects in a few weeks' time. So yeah, I came up with this great idea, this great pendant, just a little pendant right now, simple frame, just to help you guys learn how to weave. But also what came out of it was another design using some beads, but that's in next week's video. That's why we have one frame, two designs. What am I talking about? Should we have a look, shall we? So here you go. This is what we're going to make today. Very simple idea. One base wire, and we're going to do some weaving over the top here. But the takeaway from this is we're going to teach ourselves how to weave round a very gradual corner here, as you can see. And all it is adding a few extra wraps as we go down, but obviously an even amount, so it looks good as well. And here is next week's design. So as you can see, let's get central. Same frame, two different designs. So I think this deserves its own video because this has some completely different skills in it compared to this one. This is all about wrapping and adding beads in. This one's all about weaving. Also, I hope you got some twisted wire from the last video where you've been practicing. Because if you have, we're going to be using some of it up, and let's make some jump rings with it. Right then, should we have a look at what tools we're going to need for today. Right, before we move forward, as usual, let's go over the tools. Chain nose, flat nose. Flush cutters will be needed. Nylon jaw pliers for straightening will be needed. Pair of bail pliers to make a jump ring at the end will be needed. 6mm, I do believe that size is. Usual metal ruler, marker pen, chasing hammer, rubber hammer, and obviously you're going to need a block. Tweezers, #1 tool when weaving. This is something I'll be using quite a lot of in the future coming projects when we start weaving a lot. Also, I'm going to start introducing you into using files now. You need to start filing the ends of your wires for that better finish. And also, what you're going to need, this is the important piece today. So I'm going to be using, this is a 3cm form. Well, it's 31mm. But you're going to need to find something that's round, and that is 3cm in diameter. Anything around the house will do. Or you might have actually something like this. But if you can try and keep it to 3cm, because then all my wire sizes, everything I do, we will stay in the same realm. But I understand if you can't and you have to go slightly bigger. But I'm sure you'll be able to compensate. There we go. 3cm, that's what you're going to need. Need one of those. Right, wire gauges. I'm going to be predominantly using 16 gauge today, but I understand not everybody can work with 16 gauge because it's quite thicker. That 18 gauge will do. You can make it with 18 gauge. You might even want to make it a fraction smaller, just purely for rigidity. This one, 16 gauge, will be a slightly heavier and tougher pendant, but there's nothing wrong with making 18 gauge. Wrapping wire today, I'll be using 28 gauge 0.3mm, my favourite wrapping wire, but I understand other people, you guys out there might want to have a different wrapping wire that's your favourite. You might like to use the finer stuff, 30 gauge, or you might like to use a bit 0.4, which is 26 gauge. It's up to you, but I'll be sticking with the 28 gauge, that's the one I always use. Right then, should we crack on and do some weaving? Right, to start this off, we need to cut some wire. So I'm going to use some 16 gauge here, but you can use some 18 gauge. There's nothing wrong with using some 18 gauge. But I like to use the 16 gauge, a little bit heavier. So, nylon jaw pliers, run them down, get your wires straight, any kinks out. A little bit better than the fingers. Now we want to cut 18 centimeters. It's a little bit more than we need, but you never know. Now, if you're using the heavier gauge wire, so anyway, heavy gauge cutters, then don't worry about flush cutting just yet. We're going to be trimming these ends. Then, actually, might as well stay with this camera. Grab your Sharpie or your marker pen, and then mark the centre of the wire, 9 centimeters. Then grab your form that you're going to bend round, marrying up the centre line like that. Bend it round your form, and you're looking to create kind of a teardrop shape, but you want it even. There we go. Sometimes find doing it like this, and you can look at your mark. There you go. That's what you're looking for. Something like that. Let me just redo that. Get that a bit better. There we go. Reasonably happy with that. That's what you're aiming for. You're aiming to create like a teardrop shape. Now, grab your flat nose pliers. Take your flat nose pliers and place them just to the side of the centre mark there. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to put a little kink in here. Now, I find it easier because the heavy gauge wire to lean into my thumb and push, like so. There we go. And you're looking to create kind of a dainty leaf shape, like so. Take your Sharpie pen and create a mark there where the wires cross. Grabbing your form, find this easier to do on the bench, place it there, and then what we're going to do is we're going to bend that wire round the outside, the opposite direction where it's bent there. And we're just going to line up roughly the centre of our form with our mark there, and we're going to bend it all the way around. Now, I do like to go all the way around with this one. There we go. You can see you're creating like an S, kind of an S shape. Take your flat nose pliers, placing them on that centre mark. You now want to turn this side in towards the pendant. In fact, I'm going to do this up. Let's go a bit closer up. There we go, that's a little bit better for me to grab. So as you can see there, just grabbing it on the centre mark, just the other side of here, and I'm going to, again, lean into my thumb. I'm going to turn it in towards the pendant, like so. There we go. I'm going to stop. Oh, there we go. There's our frame. One frame, two designs. Right, what we need to do now for this next part, I find it a lot easier to create that spiral first, because it means we can hammer it. So yeah, let's grab the block and the hammer and let's trim this down. Right, let's measure. Now, I want to keep that bend in there. I don't want to straighten this up because it could become part of the spiral. So now I don't want a huge spiral in there. Now, I've done quite a lot of practicing this week, so making this, so I knew what size I need to cut. So I'm just going to measure down from that point there, and I know it's got a bit of a bend, but I'm going to cut it around 18 mil. There we go, about there. Just make a mark and get the heavy duties out. At this time, I am looking to get a nice flat flush cut on this. Now, this is where I recommend you guys start fighting. Now, if you look down here, see if we get the light to flash on that, you can see there's a step there. Even though I've been using Tronics and they're expensive, they still leave a slight step. So get your file out, start filing. Now, filing tip here. See, I just go forwards. I don't go shh, 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 shh. If you go shh, 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 all you're doing is you're then ruining the file's teeth. You always file forwards, push, like so, and then these will last longer. But you don't need to do much. There we go. You're just looking to get rid of that step. Oh, there we go. You can still see this flash. Let's see if we can't get a nice. There we go. And also then run your fingers around it like so, just to see if there's any burrs. Then you can get your file in and just gently just take them away, like so. Cool. There we go. I'm happy with that. Let's make the spiral. Now, in this situation, working with heavier gauge wires can sometimes be a little bit tougher with your flat nose pliers. So I find when creating the spiral to use my chain nose pliers to start off with. Bend it round. Again, see, I'm leaning into my thumb. And then, here we go. Using the pliers to create, there we go, create the spiral this way. I'm going to stop when I get to there, see? Just there. We now want to hammer that spiral. Let's get your chain nose. What am I saying? Chain nose. Chasing hammer out. And now we're looking just to grab those edges around there. Now you don't have to hammer. This isn't important. I like to do this because it creates that flash when polished. So it gives, it's a bit of a flash. That's all it is. It's not important. It's all about aesthetics. But I like to do it, so I'm going to do it. Just a few. We'll just start spreading. Ooh, careful. There we go. There you go. I'm happy with that now. There we go. So always get a bit of a flash there. There we go. That's what I look for. A nice flash. So let's finish this spiral off. Now, you might have to resize as you're coming in. Now we'll use my flat nose here to help me bring it in. Now I'm not looking to make a closed spiral. Make my life easier for when weaving. It is tricky working with a slightly heavier gauge wire. Now, I wouldn't blame you if you wanted to do this with some 18 gauge. Just going to do a little bit more of a turn, but also I'm going to turn it in here. There we go. Now, as you can see, it's got a bit of a dome on it. This is where I reckon getting your rubber hammer out. Just going around with your rubber hammer, making sure to get it flat. Like so. And obviously checking. Now my spiral, I actually feel needs to be slightly adjusted. And I'm going to turn it in just a little bit more. There we go. I'm pretty happy with that. I'm going to turn the angle in a bit more here as well. There we go. Pretty pleased with that. Not too bad. It's not the best. In fact, I've got a better one here. I might use that slightly better one. But there we go. Let's get some weaving done, shall we? And start weaving down that corner. Right. Let's start doing some weaving, shall we? So grab your weaving wire. Now you can wrap off the roll or weave off the roll. This is kind of the idea of the project. I designed a project that you could just weave off the roll of wire, because I find it really hard to say when someone goes, how much wire is needed to do this weave? It's like, I don't know how long's a piece of string. So, but what I do know is I do know the average. So if you can't wrap off the roll and you're finding it hard and you're one of those people who has to cut your wire, you're going to want a minimum of 2 meters of wrapping wire. But try and wrap off the roll. A lot easier to be done. So let's get started. So I'm going to hold the pendant, the frame, this way round. Watch, I've just seen another design there. We could have the Eye of Ra, an Egyptian design coming in. Anyway, let's not go down that road. We could have a third design soon. Right, let's start weaving. So I'm going to start on the base. I'm just going to wrap round 2 or 3 times just to get started. Like so. You can see it's not the easiest thing to wrap off the roll, but it's going to be done. Now, just get my finger now in there. In fact, I'm going to go around 3 times just to get it started. And tidy those up. Then I'm going to cross over to the other side. Now, I'm going to try and keep my finger now there, because I want to keep a bit of bare wire here. for when we come back round here later on, we're going to want to join that to that. So we want to leave ourselves some bare wire. So the way to do that would just to get your thumbnail in there and hold it in place, and stops the wraps from going down that far. In fact, there we go, it's perfect. Right, back over to the other side. So round once, round twice, cross over. Round once, come round the second time and cross over, creating a figure of 8 pattern. That's your standard figure of 8 weave. But what we're going to have to do here, let me just stop for a second. You might notice there's less distance to get around that bit there, but there's more distance down here. So what we're going to have to do, we're going to have to start adding extra wraps to the outside as we go down, because the mission is to try and finish in a straight line there. Try is the word. So it's a bit of judgment time here. So I've done the standard figure of 8 weave there. I'm now going to start adding, I've only gone 2 or 3 times, not gone far at all. I'm now going to start adding an extra wrap in to the outside here. So I'm going to add in 3 wraps. And at some point, I'm going to get to about here, halfway, or maybe just before, and I'm going to want to add 4 wraps in to the outside. And then maybe I might need to add 5 wraps in. Because basically, like I say, you've got more wire to cover here than you have here. So you need to add those extra wraps in. So starting from here, I've just gone, like I say, a couple of centimetres, not centimetres, a couple of mil. I'm now going to start adding 3 wraps to the outside. And so I'm going to keep going until I've got about halfway or a third of the way down. I'm going to be checking as I go along. And it's judgment time now. I haven't come across any rule to say that's how many wraps you need to add to get round the corner. You just got to get kind of guess it. And also it's one of those times where you might have to make a few of a new design till you get it right. There we go. Let's get some weaving on. When you start getting close to halfway down, you need to start judging whether you need to add some more wraps to the outside one part here. Because like I say, you're aiming to try and finish it a straight line down here. If you can. Tricky. I know it will be. But we're going to do the best we possibly can and try and aim with a straight line. So I'm thinking, so that there's about that much left of wrapping and that much left there. I think I'm going to probably go a couple more times with 3 wraps around here, and then I'm going to start adding 4 wraps to the outside. Tips for weaving: take your time, use your fingernails, budge everything down, 1 wrap at a time. You'll speed up the more you do this. Yeah, I think I'm going to start adding that 4th wrap in now. Again, when you start getting near close to the bottom here, you need to consider whether it's 5 wraps now. Like I say, I haven't got much there to go. And we kind of want to see if we can't finish in a straight line. So I'm going to start adding that extra wrap. Just 5 wraps. I maybe should have done 5 wraps a little bit back here. Maybe. Let's see. Well, we'll cross fingers and hopefully we finish where we want to finish. Alright, there we go. Wow, pleased with that. That actually came out better than some of the practice ones. So there we go. I actually managed to get it to kind of finish. Are we in focus there? Where are we? We're about there, aren't we? Yeah, I got it to finish in a straight line. That did work out, like I say, better than the practice sessions. So you've got to the bottom, you weave to the bottom. We now want to carry on just wrapping until we get to about here, and then we want to bind that. spiral to the outside of the frame. So yeah, just carry on wrapping down this side. You can now see I've wrapped up to the spiral. In fact, I can budge those wraps down a little bit, push that in, see what I'm doing there? In fact, I can probably add another couple of wraps in. Remember that about your wrapping, that is a spring, that it will shoot up the wire. So you can see, look, I've got my finger back in and I tucked it right back down again. There we go. Now, I'm pretty happy with that. I'm going to start wrapping and joining that spiral to the outside frame. This is why I told you to do an open spiral, because it makes your life really easy. Just bring it in, around the spiral, and then pull tight. Now, how many times you go around is up to you. I'm going to go around until I can safely fit a single wrap in nice and neat down the side. So looking like I could probably go around just 3 times with this one. Yeah. And I can come in. Yep, let's do that. I like the power of 3. Perfect. Look at that. Nice and neat. Just 3 simple wraps. Now, I'm going to keep wrapping until I get to, again, this point here, up here. Oh, well, I've wrapped up till I've reached that point there. So I'm just going to trim this wire off. Now I want to leave some, so I've got a couple of weaves to do. Don't need much, so just a quick ruler length here. I'm going to trim off, leaving myself about 20 centimeters. This is way more than I actually need. There we go. And now we need to tidy up this end before we get any further. So what do you do with your ends, your wires? Now in this situation, I would try and trim it so it just sits on the inside there, so it won't get caught. That's a tidy way of finishing it. There's a couple other ways I've got of finishing, but in these situations here, I'm going to look at just trying to get it on the inside as well. Just get my flash cutters in, nice and tight in there. Even then using my pliers just to push that end down. Now, run your fingers over. Can you feel it? Can it be caught on anything? No, I don't think so. I think I'm going to be pretty safe with that one. Pretty happy. Right, let's get over and let's finish off this end here. So we want to join this into there. Now you could do some wraps. There's nothing wrong with doing that. But if you do a little mini figure of 8 weave, I've got another great way of finishing wire off as well. So you can see I've budged it down with my fingers there. I've got a few more wraps to go. Let's add them in. It's about 4 or 5. Get your finger now in there, budge it down, see how far you got to go. Get it in tight. And yeah, there we go. I think we're nearly there. I'm going to go one more wrap. Cool. Now I'm going to weave these 2 parts together. Push that wire down, right down. There we go. Through that gap, and I'm going to put in just 1 figure of 8 weave. That's all I'm going to do. There we go. And I'm going to cross back over to the other side and complete it. 1, 2. Right then, we need to trim the end of this wire off here. What do we do with this end of wire? Now, this is a great way of getting rid of some wire. So you can see I'm just going to wrap it round the weave once, maybe twice. Put it tight, like so. Come around the other side, see? Go around the weave. Hopefully that's in focus. There we go, come up. There we go, a bit tighter. There we go. And I've come around twice, going to go through. There we go. And I'm going to trim off, making sure my end is on the inside, right on the inside there. Tweezers. Get your tweezers in. Tuck it away. Make sure it's tucked under the wrap, run your fingers over. Can you feel it? No. Unless it's not going to get caught, it's not going to come off. But there you go. And also, when you look very closely, it's got a nice neat couple of wraps there. Just a neat couple of wraps. Right, let's turn this into a spiral. Grab your block and your ruler. Now, spiral size here, I'm just going to want to go slightly larger one. I'm going to go 2.5 centimeters, 25 mil. Again, I'm going to create the spiral with my chain nose. By bringing it round and then rolling it all the way down. Now, you just want to stop before you get right to the bottom, because you want to close this up. Let's stop, get it to that point there again, and now let's hammer it. Again, you don't need to hammer this. I'm doing this again just for aesthetics. And when you're happy, get your pliers back out, flat nose or chain nose, and bring it round and maybe close it up like so. Cool. There we go. We're finished. That's the pendant. Now, let's make a jump ring at the top there. Now, I have a piece of twisted wire left over from the Let's Get Twisted video. So, might as well use this up and make this into a jump ring. So, I'm going to be using these bell pliers. What size are these ones? Yeah, 6 mil. 6 mil size jump ring. Going to bend this all the way around so I overlap. There we go. Now, when using twisted wire, the trick is when you're making your jump rings, you kind of want the twists to match up and look even. Just do your best. So remember to flush cut into the jump ring, turn around, flush cut in again, and if you're lucky, cross fingers. Did I not? Not quite. Not quite. Close enough. Then, obviously, get your pendant. Open it up and pop your jump ring on. Like I say, you just use a normal jump ring. But there you go. One weaved leaf design of sorts. Not quite sure what to call this, but yeah. Weaved leaf. We'll go with that. One weaved leaf. Brilliant. Excellent. Nice one, people. There you go, everybody. Simple project. One base wire and some weaving. So the takeaway from this project is weaving. That was the point of it, is I wanted to get you guys practicing your weaving and get in there. See if you can't get it as neat as I can. I know it takes a bit of time, but work on it. See if you can't get it as neat as I can. And obviously, teach yourself to weave round corners. It's a little bit of judgment here. I haven't got a formula for it. You just have to just do it. And it comes with experience to know how many wraps to add to the outside as you go along. Now, not even I'm perfect. I will say this. All the practice pieces I made up weren't as precise as the one I filmed just now. So that just shows, even for myself, it takes me a bit of time to get it absolute precise and perfect. Nice one. That's really good fun. I've really enjoyed showing this project. So please join us next week where we go to part 2 of this project, where we take the exact same frame and we add some beads. We do something slightly different. Not much weaving, very small amount, mainly wrapping, but I feel we're definitely going to be upping the skills a little bit next week. We're going to be pushing into what I would call slightly intermediate wrapping skills. Nice one, people. I look forward to seeing you all back at the bench next week. Take care. Bye-bye. To support this channel and help me keep making more videos, please come on over to join my Patreon, where you'll get early access to all my videos, free downloads of my books and tutorials, and entries into my giveaways and more.